Hey villagers, Dave Paulides, Canam Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for a video channel. This is the continuing book review. This is book review number 5, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. If you're new to the parade, I'm going to explain this to you. People associated with Skinwalker Ranch have come back to me and said that my work is somehow related to what's going on at the ranch. Nobody will talk to me about it, but the claims were made in a public forum, so I'm going to guess whoever said it believed it. So I've had quite an interest in Skinwalker Ranch since George Knapp and Colm Kelleher wrote the first book in the 2-book series on Skinwalker Ranch, the second one being Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Now, I want to ask you a question, see how you've been programmed. So, when somebody says, you know, I was abducted by aliens and I was taken onto this craft, we all have kind of a vision in our mind what those aliens look like. How did we get that vision? Where did it come from? Who implanted that in our mind? How would we know what an alien looks like? Well, supposedly there's many different types. And whether you believe an alien looks like that, yes, that, or you believe it looks like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man or woman of perfect stature and build and speaks perfect English. Now, do you think that the aliens speak like I'm speaking to you? Vocalize? Or is it all mind speak? Seems with mind speak you could somehow get around language issues if we could just talk mind to mind and you understood what I was thinking. Kind of like the way a psychic can see through language and understand what somebody's saying and may not even speak the language. I don't know. But this is going to be the last review of the book. And I finished it up. In the end, kind of both books, the end of this book disappointed me a little because the last 40 pages or so, there's no stories in them. The book's only 212 pages long and 40 pages are index and references and sort of a justification of why they did what they did and a culmination, a summary of how they laid it all out, and I'll explain that to you. So one of the ending chapters started with scope of AAWSAP research. They said that they tried to make it as wide as possible, as sweeping as possible, so that they could go after almost anything out there. And they were going to scrutinize UFO, UAP research. Then they stated that there were voices in and out of DIA that wanted them to focus just on UAP technology. Why would that be? Why wouldn't other researchers want this group that was interested in it to go after and understand parallel paranormal aspects to UAP research? Puzzling, isn't it? They talk about witnesses. After they went back and interviewed them several times, some trust developed, and then the witnesses admitted that they had clairvoyant type issues and telepathy after the encounter. They had unusual electromagnetic phenomena, and they felt that there were a lot more significant coincidences in their life than there had been in the past. Now, Ken Arnold, 1940s, was flying from Idaho to Washington, going by Mount Rainier, and saw a series of UFOs, kind of like discs or saucers, Well, he reported after that seeing orbs in his home. He didn't call them orbs at the time, but that's essentially what they were. Now that is interesting. So pursuant to a sighting even back in the 1940s, these kind of hitchhiker things, or whatever they were, came home to his residence and followed him around. Now if you look at history, and we study history for a reason, a lot of parallels in 80 years. So the research that they were doing at the ranch evolved into the development of 11 different databases. This even surprised me. And they outlined them. First of all, there was a National Institute of Discovery of Sciences database, the one that Mr. Bigelow ran by himself with his own researchers, NIDS. Then they developed a database of military and airline pilots and what they saw. Very little talk about that in any of the research, but I find that very interesting. Airline and military pilots, trained observers, I think that their reports would be significant. I'd like to read them. Project Grudge, Project Blue Book database. Blue Book was around essentially to poo-poo and make fun of UFO sightings. Number 4, UFO CAT database. No idea what that is. Then there was a MUFON database. Then there was a Project Colaris database. No idea what that is. Canadian government database, UK government database, AAWSAP and NABS database, international, a Skinwalker Ranch database. Then they had one that was interesting. It was noted that eyes only, individuals working at the ranch being victimized by physiological effects. They had a database on that, which means it happened, I'm guessing, quite a few times. And if, remember what I told you before, that just because you work there now and you step away and you don't have any injuries, that doesn't mean 2 years from now you're not going to come down with something bad. Yeah, I'd be worried. The book talked about how they organized details, how they kept files and records. They then talked about the Tic Tac UFO, how outmaneuvered U.S. aircraft. And when Kelleher went in and talked at these high-level government meetings, he said, well, if that craft can outmaneuver you, outthink you, by definition, that would be a national security issue. And still, our government doesn't really want to hit it head on. And I don't know if they don't want to look, maybe in their eyes, foolish in front of the international community. And maybe these small little nations should think we're all knowing and understanding, and in reality we're not. But they still don't want to really go at it. 109 documents were sent to the Defense Intelligence Agency by the team. And then they did something odd. Almost like it was filler for the book, because I didn't get this at all, but I'm going to read it to you, or summarize it for you. These guys said that there were 6 phases to the UFO world from 1947 to 2021. And they started it off with June 24th, 1947, the Ken Arnold UFO sighting. And then there were 2 sightings in 1949 where people claimed they interacted with UFOs or brought messages, and the contactee movement started. That was phase 2, 1949. Phase 3, there was an assault on U.S. Air Force facilities and ICBM sites. 60 to 70 UFO flew over Loring Air Force Base in Maine, Wurtsmith, Michigan, Minot, North Dakota, Malmstrom, Montana. And it caught our security services by surprise, to say the least. Yeah, the UFO shut down an ICBM site at Malmstrom, and probably about 80 miles from where I am right now. And the area out there is just wide open fields, folks. That's it. Phase 4, close encounters of a third kind, interact and converse people with UFO pilots. Phase 5, abduction phenomena, 1990s to 2000s. Lots and lots of black triangles reported. Phase 6, after 2010, the black triangle sightings went way down, but UFOs were seen en masse by Navy pilots. So really the first one that started it was David Fravor, working off the Nimitz battle group on a Hornet. Was sent over to look at a tic-tac looking shaped thing just off the water, and it flew away from him at historic speeds. After Fravor came forward with that, and being the commander of the flight group, brought some integrity and some credibility, and then suddenly a whole bunch of pilots in the military felt like they could report it too. And there were a bunch of pilots off of North Carolina training that saw these things. And then just recently, just within weeks, Congress has started to say and give a definition to UAPs that they travel between the air, the sky, and the earth. That's pretty heavy stuff for them to say it. But aside from all of that, for a Congressional Intelligence Subcommittee to say that, do you realize the reports they must have read that they won't let us see, that they feel comfortable saying this? Yeah. Oh, we couldn't handle that. We're too stupid. Whatever. So the question, as you have this progression of sightings, interactions, UFOs taking down our technology, maybe even flexing their muscle. The question is someone out there trying to tell us something? If you think about and open your mind up a bit here, there's billions of stars out there, billions. So if there are, there's got to be a few hundred at least where people like you and me could live on those planets, away from the star. Planets rotating around their star like we go around our sun. And out of those several hundred, you think there might be a few in there that are either way advanced of us or along the same plane intellectually. Now, if they're the same plane intellectually, then they'll probably want to go to war with us. Because that's how stupid we are. We'd want to fight anybody, right? But do these entities that have shut down our ICBMs, that have abducted our people, etc., what kind of message are they trying to send? Well, a lot of abductees are saying they're told that our Earth is going to end and we have to take care of it. I've heard that several hundred times from various abduction reports. Well, then the question it asks in the book, is someone trying to tell us something? And does consciousness have something to do with all of this? Well, I've told you before, Mr. Bigelow, who started all of this, had his son and his grandson commit suicide. I don't care who you are. That's a bigger mound than I can ever imagine getting over. I can't even contemplate the load that was put on that man's shoulders. And people are saying, well, we have a right to his stuff and this and that. You don't have a right to anything. It's his. And then why, people have asked, well, why would Mr. Bigelow be interested in all this stuff? I would be. Especially consciousness. There's been people that have stated before that that third eye in the middle of your brain, maybe it was far more developed when eons ago. Maybe Mr. Bigelow would like to figure out a way to be able to talk to his wife, his grandson, and his son. Yeah, his son and his grandson took their life. His wife died of cancer. The guy's been put through a lot of crap. Then the book also asks this question: the millions of people who have seen UFOs, and there are millions around the world. I'm one. I've seen one multiple times. I'm also always looking. People say, well, Dave, how come you see this stuff? Because I'm looking. If I take you in the woods with me and I tell you, okay, keep your eyes here, keep your eyes there. When you're walking through the woods, you always want to look in this area here. And you can get an understanding of what to look for and really what's your motive for being there. So the question is, someone trying to tell us something. Well, why not just land right out in the field in front of my house? I'm going to hold a press conference and tell the world what you want. That'd be pretty cool. Land on the White House lawn. What would Joe do? Many people who have been abducted call it a harrowing experience and hate it. They don't want to be abducted again. They don't want anything to do with it. Now, in years past, our military has been less than forthright with us on their knowledge of UFOs and things. Can you just imagine when a couple of bigwigs in the Air Force and the Army and the Coast Guard and the Navy all sit around and he said, yeah, we've got this Tic Tac UFO footage. Guys, what do we do with it? We don't know anything about this. We can't control it. We ought to just shelve it and forget it. Not even address it. Pretend like it's not there. I wonder what those conversations were like. Is anybody in our government willing to be honest and straight up with us on UFOs, on aliens? Is anybody? Did the military feel helpless knowing that those UFOs came over an ICBM site and just shut it down? Well, if they didn't, they were stupid. In the book, they talked about a man named Bernard Kastrup from the Netherlands. He had a PhD in computer science and philosophy. Here's what he stated: consciousness is primary and gives rise to physical reality, not the other way around. Consciousness is primary and gives rise to physical reality. Could we summon something? I have friends right now who believe 100% that they can go up and call in a UFO. These guys are not nuts. They're super smart people. And there's hundreds of scientists looking into human consciousness right now. There's so much we don't know about it. And that kind of was the book. There's a couple of huge things that have never been talked about at the ranch or in Knapp and Kelleher's books. That is the entity's ability to freeze an area. Well, Dave, what do you mean? Essentially, freezing time and space. Well, how could that be? That's a good question. I've read many UFO reports, abductee reports, etc., where they were told and they experienced something along the lines, hey, how you doing? Huck just brought in her rubber bone. She wants to play. And essentially what they do is around an area, they could freeze everything within 5 miles. I know that sounds completely absurd and stupid, and Dave, why would you even say that? There's a lot of evidence to support this. And then within that area, they can make you and them completely normal. They can say, hey, you don't have to worry about anyone coming by. Everything in the space around us and on Earth, around this area, is just frozen. Yeah. Now, I think about this often when I wrote about Missing 411, a sobering coincidence, where people are in a bar and nobody ever sees anyone leave the bar, that somehow or another the people got out of the bar, and then somehow or another they got into a river where there's 4 feet of snow everywhere and there's no tracks going to the river. How did this all happen? Now, NIDS, Bass, they dealt with issues at the ranch where bulls were put into containers, where a lady put away her shopping into the cupboard, she comes back and everything's back out. There's some control mechanism at place. It's obvious that, they don't have some 6 foot tall or 7 foot tall giants that are putting these cows in these containers, or they're purposely putting back forth everything that the lady put away and putting it back on the counter. There's some kind of mechanism in time and space to move that back and forth seamlessly. Well, what is that? And it's interesting that in not one of the books did they get into this type of science, which tells me it's something they're looking at hard, or the DIA is looking at hard. I am concerned about the people at the ranch with radiation. They've shown that radiation is a real thing, and it comes and it goes. It's not there all the time because they're carrying badges. If it was there all the time, it'd be going off. But it seems as though that the entity has the ability to impart this. But how do we know that there's not another technology that could do them serious harm? Like the ranch foreman having a heart issue. People coming down with severe headaches. A lot of questions. But Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, written by Lakatsky, Kelleher, and Knapp. Give it 5 stars. Well worth the read. It'll hold your interest. And it would be the natural progression in step 2 on writing about what happened at Skinwalker Ranch. I appreciate you being here. Please pass it around. Be nice to your neighbor. I'm going to go out and play with Huck before she gets mad at me. Paulides out.